happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you win from within. And today, the theme is going to be on perspective. And I brought on a unique guest that I think, well, I don't think, I know his perspective at a really, really young age got shifted. And I guess really in a way that, God, at such an early age, it was life-altering things that happened. I think it's given him this perspective that he's been able to apply. You're just going to have to hear the story because it's really intriguing. His attitude is incredible, and it's really, I would say, inspirational and just a great conversation. Nate Green is a former cop turned 8-figure entrepreneur, best-selling author, and leadership coach. After building and selling a company recognized on the Inc. 5,000 list, he now helps driven individuals succeed through his book, Suck Less, Do Better, and programs like Built Unstoppable. Nate leads with grit, heart, and a deep commitment to family, growth, and legacy. Well, Nate, it's great to actually get you on. For those of you listening, this is take number 2 because technology just did not like us last time. But brother, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, Jam. I really appreciate you having me. And, it is just like life. Sometimes you set out on your best of plans and something happens. And that's, man, walking through, being resilient, jumping back into it. Let's go, baby.
Well, and actually, you and I are going back and forth because one of the things that I've been asked to do is have these themes of the show. And you know what? I realized that as you were talking, because you've gone through some stuff, man. You've had some challenges in your path. And you and I were both kind of chuckling because, when I'm apologizing about the tech and I'm feeling so bad and you're like, really, dude? Like, if this is the worst that happens, like, we're doing fine. So I really, you know what this theme is going to be? We're going to talk about perspective, because how often do we have this thing where it's like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And it's such a trivial, minute thing. And I know why we do it, right? I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste the audience time. I want to bring value. But at the end of the day, it was a tech glitch. It's not that big a deal. You've certainly gone through some much, much more challenging things. So that's our theme for today, brother. And I'm sure you can riff off a lot of that. But that just hit me. I'm like, dude, it's perspective. That's what this show's on.
I love perspective because, it's crazy. I think life's perspective that it naturally brings by its pain and punishment sometimes, and even its greatest joys, it makes other things look so minuscule. And it's, man, it is crazy when you've been through the dungeons, you've been through the demons, and you've dealt with some stuff head on. Tech glitch, that's a joke. Like, cool, we'll reschedule next week. Let's go. Like that's simple stuff in my world.
Yeah, and that's the way you acted. You're like, dude, stop apologizing. We're good. This is not a big thing, which I absolutely love. But let me ask you this, brother, because I will say, I love doing the podcast. Here's why. I have energy that I didn't have this morning right now. And it's because I'm with an awesome guest that has cool perspective, that does cool things in this world, that's faced some challenges and tribulations and said, you know what, I'm going to face this thing head on. But let me ask you this, brother. When you have those days like I had this morning, I don't know why. My energy was just off a little bit. I just wasn't feeling my absolute best. What do you do, man, to like get going? And maybe you don't have those days, but I certainly had one this morning. I was like, what the heck is going on? And now I'm on the show with you and I feel great.
So, I mean, I think the biggest thing is we all have them. It doesn't matter. Nobody's exempt. And it doesn't matter how often they happen. It's always there. It's just more a matter how fast can you recenter. For me, it's purpose. How, those days that I would just wake up and I'm just like, man, I'm just kind of in a funk. I'm just kind of like just off. One, I figure out, what did I miss? What did I do different? What did I eat last night? Like what's the different cycle here? What did I sleep? I didn't sleep well. Okay, sometimes there's controllables and non-controllables, but I always figure out how to recenter. And then it's more a matter of how can I lock into my purpose, why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, what am I here for? What is my story gonna read at the end? And then it's figuring out how today can be a part of that. And how can I bounce back from whatever it is today, make today the best version of today so that I can move forward down that pathway.
All right. So you said a big one, What am I here for? I mean, I don't know about anybody listening, but these are my sleepless nights because, I mean, literally, I built 3 companies and sold them, and I still ask that question. What am I here for? Like, God, what's the plan? And I feel like days, man, I know it and I'm clear, and it's like, this is why I was put on earth. And then there's other days where I'm like, God, is there something I'm missing here? What for you, brother? Because again, you were a cop, then had this wild story, and you can definitely share that with the audience more. But at what point did you know this is my purpose? This is why I'm put on this earth. Did it just hit you like a lightning bolt, or do you have days where you're like, geez, I think I'm this, but maybe I'm that?
There's always this adaptation, and when we're talking about perspective changes, which means purpose has to adapt. So the JM here and the Nate here, like these dudes, I mean, we're both really young, of course. All the life experiences that we've had have adapted our perspective. And so that also helps us see life different, helps us see our future different, helps us see ourselves different. And as you adapt and as you grow, that purpose is always going to adapt and grow. And so to answer your question, sometimes I'm like, God, listen, like, this is what I think I'm supposed to be doing, but I am kind of a little bit of a box of rocks at times. So sometimes I'm in that bull in a china shop that maybe I'm moving in the wrong direction. So if this is not, please make me more enlightened to move in a different direction. And so those pieces, and whether it's, heart failure and the paralysis that came from law enforcement and the darkness that followed all the way through to, climbing that ladder as an entrepreneur, really like building, scaling businesses, selling 3 companies like you, like, well, wait a second. Then you hit this mark. I was 40 years old last year when I sold my companies, an 8-figure exit. I don't have to work again. And as much as that's incredible, you and I both know that it's like, okay, wait a second. Now I'm tasked with an even bigger responsibility. Now I have freedom. All right, what am I going to do with freedom? Because to me, I take that more serious than anything I've done in the past. It's like, all right, God, what do you want from me now? What is it now? What am I built for? How can I impact people? How can I change lives? And I can do it in different ways, but really, what is the best way? And so time management, it all needs to be in line. And so sometimes we can get a little off course with our alignment, with our purpose. And for people like me and you, because of how fast-paced, dominant, we're ready to go. Sometimes it doesn't take like a 180-degree turn, doesn't take a 90-degree. No, sometimes it's 2 degrees. That's all it takes, just a little bit of misalignment and we're off. So when we're talking about perspective, we're talking about purpose. These things, man, you got to lock in and you have to ask yourself why over and over again. Why am I doing this? Should I be doing this? God, why do you have me doing this? Why do you have me in this season? Or is this like, wait a second, if I'm God talking to Nate, I'm like, hey, listen, I can't give you the full Monty of what I got because you'll freak out a little bit. So I got to kind of unlock little bits along the journey to really help you see, because what I have for you is too big for you to visualize in this moment.
And, I think that's absolutely spot on. I think that's been my experience, right? If I were to know the whole picture, I would become bored because that's boring. If you literally knew the playbook to, I don't know, the game before, it would become boring. And so I like that idea where it's like, you don't have it all figured out. And what you think is going to be the end all be all, I promise you it's not. You're going to take a right turn, a left turn. You're absolutely going to get run over by a truck at some point, figuratively, hopefully, but not.
Or physically. But you never know.
Or physically. You don't know. And for you, brother, I mean, so you said you exited at 40, a company, but at 23, you had a serious moment where like, okay, I was going to be a cop. This was my dream. This was my vision, or at least in that season of life. And then something just kind of out of the blue, kind of a radical thing happens. So tell me about that, brother. Tell me where you were at in that stage to go, wait a minute, this wasn't, I guess I'm going to take not the detour, but actually this is the route I was supposed to go.
Man, I got into a car accident and I was paralyzed for about 3 months. And so walking through that alone was this, for lack of a better words, mind screw. It was this like, who am I? What happens if I can't walk again? What happens if I'm incapable? What happens? All these what ifs start rolling through you. And then on the backside of that, I was like, oh man, now I'm good. Now I can go back to being a cop. And I had to go through and qualify back on the physical side, the physical agilities test, to make sure that I was fit. And while I was running that, my heart just completely gave out. It was this weird freak out. The guys that were watching said I was like a bunny rabbit, where I was running, and then I would face plant in the dirt just to jump right back up and run, face plant again. My heart was stopping over and over again. And then when I was done, it hit 220 and it stayed there for about 6 hours. I'm sitting in the hospital pouring sweat. Like they're giving me everything, horse tranquilizers, not really, but basically like every single thing that they could to try to get my heart rate down. And then from that day on, my heart was never the same. And basically it turned out to be a miscommunication issue between my brain and my heart. But it took them about 6 months to a year to figure that out. And in the interim period, the doctors were like, Nate, this is a degenerative issue. And, we've seen this before, and we think that this is going to be a major issue. And you're probably looking at about a 10-year lifespan. Wow. Man, like a cop Nate, from like kicking down doors, like bust, you name it, the crazy stuff. I almost had no fear in my life, to paralysis, to all of a sudden 10 years. I'm like, man, does it get any darker than that? Dreams exploded, everything in my face. And I'm like, all right, God, what is this? And I'll be honest with you and your listeners, that's we're open in vulnerability. Like you gotta have that here. So some of those days, man, I sat with my gun to my head, trying to decide whether that should be the end. Because those dark moments were so dark. But when you're talking about perspective, what woke me up in a whisper from God was, this can't be the end. And it's like, okay, then what? And on the other side, as God was saying, hey, you got to do something incredible on the other side so that you can show people that you can go through the darkness. And on the other side, you can climb a different mountain and it can look incredible. But you can't give up. You got to take one step at a time, and you got to keep on pushing forward. And I tell you what, the hope that my life could be a light for those people in the darkness, man, that's what kept me going through those hard times. That was the perspective that I locked into, was like, this can't just be for me, because if it was just for me, it's time to go. But it's got to be for others. And that perspective is what kept me grinding step by step, day by day in those dark moments.
I wish, and my hope of this podcast now, it is shifted from just, all right, we're going to feature this really cool guy, he's going to teach you some stuff, to, no, this is a real, so Nate, my listeners know this, but if you don't, I lost my dad to suicide. So when you talk about this moment that you literally had this gun in hand, it sends shivers down my spine, and not in a way other than I want to reach these people, right? I want somebody listening right now, if you're in that dark moment and you've lost perspective and you're not hearing God's voice say, this can't be it, because you had enough, I don't know what I'll call it, foresight, insight, connection to source to have that. And I think people that are so dark that they can't even hear that moment that God says, no, this can't be it. You need to come through this, come out on the other end, and show people that there's a greater thing of force here. I hope people hear this, man, because I don't want to lose anybody. Like I lost my dad. I'm so glad that you were reached during your dark times. So I guess without making it so dramatic, but it's a big deal. How do we reach those people, brother? Because I know somebody's listening right now and you're like, my life sucks. This is not what I wanted it to be. And I've lost perspective. I don't see a way out. I want somebody to hear and know that there is a better way. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Life is beautiful and it's ugly and it's messy, but you know what, man? Just hang in there.
Yeah. And I will even kind of push to a funny, sarcastic conversation that I have with God. And I go back through a lot of my dark times, and there's been seasons that I've begged God, like, just take it from me. Take this pain, take this difficulty. And then I always ask him, if you're not going to take it, then don't let it be in vain. And I think that's the biggest key. And so my conversation with God, I hear this sarcastic Nate type voice that comes back and says, hey, Nate, listen, like, it's your job, Nate, to not make it in vain. And so God's going to provide us the opportunity. And so when you look at it that way, think about life as how many superpowers can you collect? And those superpowers are really mainly collected in the dark times. They're collected during these moments where you are in the turning point. You are in the hardest points. You are in the tough points. Those are where those lessons are learned. Those are where you can collect all these different nuggets of wisdom. If you like Batman, cool, you're getting all these tools around your belt. If you like Superman, you're just getting your cool cape. Those are the moments. I'll be honest with you. Every single thing I've done in my life, it's come through lessons in the dark times and really learning, really growing. And I tell you what, I have the ability to connect with and empathize with and really guide people through some of their darkest times only because God allowed me to go through some of the hardest times myself. And so without those superpowers, without that ability to really go through it and really find myself working through it day by day, I would have never been able to support some of the people that I've been able to support. And so my encouragement is, guys, listen, like if you're in the darkest moments of your life, this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. You are being prepared to be able to have a superpower that will give you the ability to save somebody else's life down the road, to help somebody else connect to the joy that they can have in the future, the hope of their future, to really help them climb that next mountain.
You know, and it is fascinating how without the dark times, we won't appreciate the amazing light and beautiful times as much. It sucks, though. You're like, yes, I will. I promise you, I will enjoy it just as much. But you won't, right? And I had a simple reminder again this morning. It was such a small win. My wife sent me this text, and I was like, not everything is lost. And it was like it's so minute. I don't even know how to describe it on air to be like, it was just this tiny win. And I was like, let's go. That's all I needed. Like one more. So at 23, brother, excuse me, I just spit on my mic. But at 23, you're told, look, bro, you have less than a decade to live. Holy cow, that's pretty. I can't even imagine. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, and I literally can't. You just said you sold your company at 40, so clearly we're past the decade mark.
In case you're wondering, I'm not gone. So, in case you're wondering, it was about 6 to 9 months, I think it was, after that original diagnosis or concern and issue that they brought up. They really didn't take into consider my spine. Because of the car accident, everybody was focused on my lower spine because that's where it looked like my spine had just had tongues everywhere because of all the discs that got destroyed. But turned out there was actually a twist in my spine right above where my brain would then communicate through my spine to my heart. And so the twist in my spine was stopping the communication or the proper communication. And when I was just sitting around, it wasn't really creating a problem. But if I was running, exerting myself, anything crazy, that's when it would show up. And so it turned out, instead of being a degenerative issue, it turned out to be a side effect from the car accident that was never seen. And even 6 to 9 months later, they still didn't know the what. They just ruled out the degenerative side with some tests. And so they're like, okay, it's not this, but we still don't know where it's at. It actually took them about 3 or 4 years, and it took me going to a chiropractor to find this kink in my spine. And so crazy. I mean, now I'm physically able to do anything I want to. I got my spine, thank God, to Dr. Matt Erba, who's no longer practicing here in Florida, but I know he's out there. Great dude. He straightened my spine rather solid. And so now I am ornery as can be and physically able. So that's good. But for me, it was kind of that identity crisis. That moment where like, hey, listen, like this is like, in these moments, it doesn't matter whether I got 10 years to live, whether I got 30 years to live, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to go back to being a cop. Like nobody's going to let me be a cop if I'm passing out randomly and dropping out. I mean, can you imagine me chasing a dirt bag, face planting in the dirt? Like it just doesn't work that way. You can't be doing that. So my days were done as a cop. And luckily my dad, who's just a wise man, just said, "Hey, Nate, don't put all your eggs in one basket." So I was going to school for business and accounting and finance. I was going to nerd school, being made fun of and hazed all the time by cops. And I was like, "Hey, listen, this is my backup plan, or this is my 20-year plan after I retire, is to go start a business." And so it just, everything kind of got shrunk gated with timeline. And so then after having to retire, it was like, okay, what do I need to do to launch a business?
Does that make you realize how little we actually know about like I hear people say all the time, "Here's my 5-year plan." And I don't mean to laugh, but it's dead wrong. Whatever you say your 5-year forecast is, I'm like, I personally have done it. I did it for years and I've been wrong every 5 years. The first 3 segments, I was wrong. I made so much more, did so many more cool things. There was a 5-year plan that it was the opposite, where, man, I thought I was going to crush it and it wasn't so great. But it is one of those things, like, we don't really know. And to say like, well, this is where I'm going to go, and this is, man, don't we just have to kind of be present? I'm not saying don't have goals, guys. Have goals, have a vision, have a purpose, as you said. But gosh, to think like, oh, this didn't happen the way, so now woe is me. No, man. That new lease on life, it had to give you to be like, gosh, it was a spine thing. And now not only you are good to go, now it's, you must just appreciate every single day that you have. But that, I don't know if you'd have that if you didn't go through those traumatic events.
100%.
I don't know.
No, you wouldn't. And you have to go through that darkness to really see how exciting life can be on the other side. And you know, it's one of those things that when you're in the moments, it feels like it's the end of the world, but it's not the end. It's just a new beginning. And that's where, you know, I'm all about making 5 and 10-year plans. I mean, I've ran my entire life off of plans. Then there's always jokes, you know, God's like, I got another plan for you. And it's sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's cool. And sometimes the plans that I put, like you said, like, okay, I set these goals and wait a second, I achieved the goals earlier. Why? Because our perspective was wrong when we set the goal. And so that's where our perspective even of ourselves change and always adapt. I use a term called cracked lenses, which is all about how we see ourselves, the cognitive biases that throw off what we see our abilities to be. And so as your perspective grows and maybe you clean up those cracks and you really seal up those issues and you're like, wait a second, I'm capable of more. Then you have to recast and recast and recast. And sometimes you realize you're running down this pathway and you think it's going to give you all this fulfillment. And then you're like, wait a second, I get no fulfillment inside of this arena. And I'm just kind of checking boxes. No, I need to go a different direction. Why? Because I need more of my purpose to show. I need to have some heart tug. And just like right now, like I don't take on clients unless it's somebody that I have a heart tug with, either their story, their business's purpose, or their forever story. Something I've got to have a heart tug with a client or else I'm not taking them on. It's like, no, that person is not for me. I can connect you with another consultant. That's great. I'm just not your guy. And that's where for me is like having that, I've got to have the heart tug because I got to have some kind of purpose behind it. Because you know, the one thing I'll tell you, as you know, the money doesn't create happiness. Money doesn't create greatness. Money is just a checklist of saying, hey, I got financial freedom. That's great. What am I going to do about it now? What am I going to do with it now? Just like the hardships, your perspective has to change. And what are you going to do with it now?
I want to shift gears just because your book, Suck Less, Do Better. Awesome title. Pretty clear cut. Hey, man, suck less, do better. Like, come on. I feel like every coach I've ever had is looking at me saying, like, come on, man. So I love the title. Tell me more about it, man. I haven't had a chance to read it. I'm just curious. It seems profoundly simple the way the title is, but what really was the message? And I want my audience to go check it out, but give us some snippets, something that really says, dude, this is why this book.
Yeah. So basically it is a roadmap. I went through all of my difficulties, my hardships on the journey. What were my major holdbacks that I was stumbling with? What was I losing my perspective or my alignment along the journey, and really walk through this phase, you know, especially like with really seeing who I am and what I'm built for. That is something that took me a long time and a lot of face plants in the entrepreneurial journey to really figure out what I was really capable of. And so it's basically a roadmap for entrepreneurs to really help them really chase after a greater future. And funny enough, suck less, do better isn't like a jab. It's not like this, like, oh, you suck, so you better get better. It's actually a way, and this is near the end of the book. It really helps recenter that concept, because it's all about self-reflective nature and ignoring other people around you, silencing all this noise and really looking at yourself in the mirror, say, how can I suck less, do better today in comparison to who I was yesterday? And so for me, I've been saying that to myself for about 13, 14 years. And that's where when the publisher reached out to me, they're like, hey, listen, like we heard this little jargon that you use. And I'm like, yeah, like, can you make it a book? Yeah, I can make a book. And so that's kind of really where the whole heart behind the book is, really just creating these roadmaps, helping people navigate these different storms faster, and basically become this roadmap of fast track. And then also in the end, it's like, hey, listen, silence the noise, forget everything around you, focus on you. Who are you? What are you built for? And how do you chase after that day after day, better day after day?
Well, isn't that, if we could get everybody to just silence the critics, including our own, but certainly who cares what people say? Like, who really cares what somebody says about you? Now, I know that sounds really, oh yeah, sure, Jam. And I'm sure every teenager, like, really? It's the biggest deal in the world, because my peers, if they say I'm, bad or I'm ugly, but gosh, I want people to really be able to silence those critics, because that's when people play small, is when you listen to other people's insecurities around you. That's when you're playing small. And so when I'm hearing that suck less, do better, I'm hearing you silence that, both inner critic and certainly the outer critic. Am I reading into that right, brother? Because that's what I heard in what you said.
That's exactly what it is, man. It's navigation. It's, you got to set your parameters. I call it your lighthouse. You got to figure out what your lighthouse is. What is that goal? What is that forever? What do you want to have impact here on this earth, whether it be in business, in your relationships? What does that look like? And then you got to start taking focused action towards that in your best light, moving yourself forward. Because, man, in my early days, I almost completely derailed my second year of business because I was paying attention to all these other business owners around me and what they were achieving. And I almost redid my entire model until I went back to my plan. And I was like, okay, why did I set it up this way? Because I was frustrated. They were making faster profit margins than I was. And I was like, what is going on? How come they're winning better than me? And then I went back to my model, and I went back and realized, wait a second, my model is built to scale and sell. They're trying to get fast plays. I want to build a machine that will just constantly breed more and more revenue that I can end up selling to private equity. And so when I went back to my models, I realized I got to shut all this stuff out, or else it's going to derail me. It's going to pull me left and right versus what is my plan? What is my trajectory? Where am I going? And then, that was that realization that I was like, okay, listen, who's the best version of Nate that could ever exist? Forget everybody else. What's the best version of me? Really understand who I am and what I'm built for. And then start navigating, how can I deploy that in business? How can I deploy that in relationships, in every different area of my life? And then shut everything out because it doesn't matter.
Isn't that fascinating, the comparison game? Because we all get into it, or at least I certainly do. I'll fall on the sword and say, I don't like it, but there are times that I'll, just like you said, like, I know this guy and he's crushing it and I'm not. Well, here's the deal, man. You have a different plan. You have completely different circumstances. And the truth is, I have no idea what they're going through, good, bad, or indifferent. And they have no idea what I'm going through. How were you able to really silence that? Because I love what you said. It's like, look, this is my plan. My plan is to scale it and ultimately sell it, which you did for 8 figures, which is awesome. How did you silence the critics, though, man? Or really, sorry, not the critics, the comparison. Is that something that you got faced with? And I'm asking for a tangible way, because I think anybody, in the social media world, you see it and it's natural to say, ooh, but wait a minute, that's not your life. That's not your path. Take the good, be inspired by it, but don't compare yourself, because there's no way to do an apples to apples comparison. It's literally impossible.
Yeah, I dive into that into the book about like different ways to reframe, and that's vital. Like you can't think you're ever going to be exempt because it's going to creep in. And so you have to learn the lessons of like daily reframing. If not, what's going to happen is you're going to wake up, like maybe you this morning, not saying that was your issue this morning, but you wake up and you're kind of like a little disgruntled and you're like, well, I don't know why George is slaying it when I'm not, like you're like, sometimes when you get stuck in these moments in your life, then it's like, oh, why can't I just blank? And the problem that comes is a lot of times we're comparing our first step down the path to somebody's 20th step down the path. And that's where the perspective and that reframing has to be like, wait a second, who am I? What is my mission? And what step am I on? And then when you do look at, let's throw a big name out here. The Rock, dude. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, like my dude, that guy's incredible, man. Like, look at all the stuff he's doing. Look at all the incredible stuff. Man, I'm so stoked for this guy. But it's come from all the hard work and all the pain and all the suffering and all the constantly getting up when he fell over and over again. And he's so open about his fails. And I love that. And he's such a generous dude. But if you look at the Nate or the JM and compare us to him, you can't. It's two different lives. It's two different worlds. It's two different purposes. Like, we're just not the same people. And that's beautiful. And so when you're looking at it, what happens is when you live in the comparison world, you naturally click over to the envy world. And what goes on is that starts disrupting in your heart. Is then you can't even be happy for them. And here's where it gets destructive. Is if those people are inside your circle, inside your corner, then you're happy when they fail. You're happy when they slip up versus celebrating their wins. And so like the slippery slope of the comparison, leads to jealousy, envy, and all this stuff. And then it creates the destruction of relationships. And it really creates, man, what a horrible human you can become when a close friend of yours slips up and they fail. You're like, nailed it. I didn't fail. Now look, now we're a little bit more even. You see what I'm saying? Like, and that's what you got to reframe it every single time it shows up. It's that snake you got to cut off every single day. And dude, it happens to me too. I'm like, well, maybe I should just be doing better because, but I'm like, oh, wait a second, stop. I'm on step 3. They're on step 55. It's okay. It's okay. Where am I at on my step 3? Cool. I'm moving. Forget that. Man, I love it for them. And that's where immediately what I try to do is I try to celebrate internally what they're doing. Man, look at The Rock, dude. What a dude. See what he's doing. And I know that's a big example that everybody knows who The Rock is. If not, please send us a message because we can inform you. but you see what I'm saying? Like, and that's where when you change the reframe to like my step versus their step, and then you actually internally celebrate where they've gotten to, it changes your heart, man. It changes the way that you see it. And it's not a competition, me versus them, because there's plenty of money to go around, dude. Plenty of money.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, it's an abundant place. Actually, now, as you were describing it, I realize exactly what happened to me. So we're filming this right now, the day after Labor Day, guys. So this is a Tuesday morning for me. Marketing is not my forte. It's just not. Lots of great content. Take a company. You want to explode it? Let me be a part of it. It'll go well. But for whatever marketing, this idea, there's a gap. There's just something that doesn't connect for me. And I had like 3 or 4 different meetings coming my way, marketing. And what it was overwhelmed. As I'm talking it out, I'm like, you're just not that good at it. And that's okay. You need to find somebody on, or I have great teammates, just get it over to them. But I'm telling you, brother, it affected my mood, and it's just wild because I coach people on this stuff as a performance coach. But yet for me, what you just stepped through, I was like, oh, that's what was going on. It's just so funny. Tell me about your program, Built Unstoppable. What's that all about?
So it is one of my favorite things that I've built because it really works through people's process in their life. A lot of times there's great performance coaches like yourself that you can help them kind of on these different levels. What I like to do is I like to take a step back. I think of it as like before people can break through or break out, sometimes they need to break free. And so, people really need to take some time and really recenter. And that's what that program is really about, is walking them through a journey of really identifying who they are as their greatest asset. Really coming to contact with what are these mindsets from childhood or from our past that's holding us back from seeing that. Then it's like, okay, how do we prepare for deployment? And how you prepare is really setting this trajectory of like, okay, what could this person really become if he really like took all the right actions? Forget it being Nate, but separate it. I call it the display. What is the displayed version of you, of where you could go? And then like, what could that look like in action? And then you take it back to the drawing board, to the planning, and really walking through either your industry, or sometimes we found people throughout our program, they're like, Nate, listen, like, this is awesome, but I'm not supposed to be doing my job. Okay, great. We've had people sell their businesses on the backside of the program because they're like, Nate, listen, I was living my life as my dad versus as me because of all the expectations. And so think of it as like, hey, listen, I want people to break through and I want them to break out and take the right actions all day long, but I really want them to break free. And so really to be what I call built unstoppable, you got to lock in and you really got to figure out, what are you built to chase after? What is this back end side? And for me, that's the greatest part. It's a 12-week mastermind. And man, we dive deep everywhere from tears, laughter, the whole spread. We have case studies. And man, I love it because it really gives this freedom for people to really thrive post the program.
There's a theme that's coming up with you where you have this ability to pause, be in that quiet moment. That's what I'm sensing throughout. This seems like the power of the pause is what I'll call it, to really get clear on where are we going? Why is this important to me? And I think in this busy world, not enough people do that. So do you do this on a daily for you, brother? Is that what you have, this ability? Is it a monthly thing? Is it a quarterly thing? Like, I'm going away, I'm going to the woods for 3 days, and like, these are things that I've done, by the way, and it's like been really helpful. But it feels like when you're talking, both when you were younger and you had this moment, and you had this moment of just like, you paused in this moment and you're present. And that's what I'm hearing in your book. That's what I'm hearing in this program. What does it look like for you personally on a daily basis? Because again, built the company, sold it, awesome. People want to accomplish these things. And I'm hearing you have this ability in those quiet moments to really receive downloads that so often many of us miss.
Man, it's awesome, man. I tell you what, it's managing manic, I think, is the key. I'm a very manic, easily excitable person, dude. I'm fast paced. I'm like, basically naturally built in with ADHD and all kinds of insanities. I drink like a third caffeine because I can't handle full caffeine, because I will literally crawl out of my skin because I'm so excited. And so learning how to quiet the noise and really just sit in a moment and do it quickly, because whether it's a reset, whether it's a refocus, or whether it is that quiet moment for planning and processing. And so it's more like knowing yourself and then how to recenter quickly. Like, wait a second, like, I got to figure out, instead of living in the Nate, how do I work on the Nate? And it's just the change of mindset. Just like, instead of working in a business, how do I work on a business? It's like, okay, wait a second. Is this the best Nate that's showing up? Okay, I'm showing up like these things. Wait a second. No, this is not what I want to be. This is not who I want to be. I'm starting to slip down a path. And so it is a constant recentering. And so every single day, man, I start the day off with centering. I try to get myself centered. I'm not talking about doing anything crazy. For me, I like to read the Bible, and I like to read through kind of like, what is the plan? What have I put the plan in place so far for my life? And how do I connect all these dots back together and even check them? Hey, is this right? Is this really how I'm supposed to go? You ask the yes, the no, the maybe, the why, all these pieces. And so it's not, I've never done a 3-week in the woods. I've never gone on a weekend retreat. I've never done that. I've learned how to lock in quickly and to really navigate getting my planning in place, saying, hey, listen, is this on the road? Is this on the path? And it's always because I've had good long-term focus towards that lighthouse of what I want to do with my life.
Where are you going, brother? So that lighthouse, what does that look like for you now? Because again, I talk to many entrepreneurs, they sell their company and you think it should be elation. Sometimes it's not, man. Sometimes it's really actually some of those dark times when it should be so great. And I'm not saying that's for you, but I'm just curious. How has that experience been? Was it awesome? And you're like, dude, great. Loved the season I was in, loved building the company. Now I get to do something different. How does that look for you right now?
So I'll walk you through that mental process just to make sure that there is no, rainbows, butterflies, and unicorns. So for me, inside the building that my multiple businesses were in, we had about 80 team members there every day, 70 to 80 every single day. And so for me, when my exit happened, I sold the company. I was originally supposed to work out all the way to 2025. We came to terms after a few months saying, hey, listen, like, I'm not needed here. It's just time to rip the Band-Aid. At some point, we just make that choice. So we ripped the Band-Aid. I worked out as a consultant for a few months. And then January 1 was like quiet. It was like scary quiet. And that's when it all set in and fell in. It was like, man, like I miss my people. I miss being around all these people. And so navigating that was a tough season, but it never took away from where I'm going. And so keeping in mind, I chose to sell the business for a purpose because I felt like the impact that I could have inside the business was now less than the impact I could have outside the business. And if I live my entire life and if I don't change lives, man, I've completely wasted it. And God said, Nate, I've given you opportunities. I've given you difficulties, or I've allowed difficulties, not saying God gave them to me. He's allowed things. He's given me a story. This can't be wasted. And that's our choice as individuals. And God's like, man, like, listen, like, if you want to be a life changer, you got to take action. And so for me, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I know I'm passionate about helping people break free from their past, the things that hold them down, the darknesses, and all these different things. I really want to help people break through to figure out exactly what they're built for and really then be ready to break out and chase after that greater future step by step by step by step. I love it. Those are kind of like the 3-part model, but sometimes it also looks different. Sometimes it's like, hey, listen, the youth group, we got a few guys in our youth group that are like, man, like, hey, they need some help building this business. Cool. I'll sit down. I love it. Sit down with these teenagers, get them all riled up and excited and really focused. Cool. So for me, that juices me up. Getting these small impact wins. And so for the rest of my life, I'm like, hey, listen, how can I stack up the most amount of impact wins possible?
Well, that's a heck of a way to be fulfilled on a daily. I will say that. What didn't I know enough to ask you, brother? That as we're starting, it's 40 minutes into this conversation is just ripping by in a great way. What didn't I know enough to ask you that you're like, dude, we got to share this with the audience. This is something that's on my heart. Anything I didn't know enough to ask you about?
I tell you what, the one thing I will tell you is it is very important to me just to let you know and let your audience know that, like, listen, I'm a smart dude and I've been able to walk through this journey, but the credit really goes to God. He's really just given me that step by step, that play by play. And you know what? I'm not telling you, like, yo, you have to be a Christian to have an impact. I'm not telling you that. But what I'm telling you is you got to have a purpose, and the purpose has to go beyond you. And for me, that purpose has always gone beyond me. And that's given me a lot of light in the darkness. That's gotten me a lot of light and drive in the hard times. And man, that's even in the freedoms right now. That's why I still do this. It's not because I have to, it's because I get to, and I feel this obligation, like, man, like I got to help people, even though I could be sitting on a beach smoking cigars all day long. I would get bored, man. My ADHD kicks in and it's like, no, like, let's go break something, but for me, like, it really has to be taking how I've been built and as great, incredible, and also as difficult, just ask my wife, as difficult as I can be, like, there's a lot of greatness, but there's also a lot of disruption. I am not an easy person. I'm a very loving person, but I'm also like, hey, by the way, let's go do this. And she's like, okay. She's very adaptable. And so, man, like, stay true to who you are, but also, man, get that purpose that's way beyond you, because you got to have it.
I love it. So if people are listening, they're like, I'm in, I want to find my purpose. I want to figure out how to pause and really find that North Star. where's the best place to reach you, brother? Whether it's, to find your program, Built Unstoppable, find the book, where's the best place to connect with you online?
Yeah, the best place is the website, Success with Nate Green. On there, you can book a free discovery call and get with me or my team. Hey, you know what? If you guys put JM's name in the notes, I'll make sure and do a discovery call with you one-on-one, because I feel like that's important. So I'll tell my team, if JM's in there at all, then you know what? You're not going to go to one of my team members. You're going to get to harass me directly. And so even if you have some questions like, Nate, like, listen, like, why are you bald? I'm okay with it. Like, I'm an open book. So, it's enjoyable, man. I love it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was on my list of questions. I just didn't get to it. So somebody reach out to Nate, find out, and then share it with me.
Share it with the world.
Awesome. I appreciate you, man. You lifted me up, and I'm so glad you were here, brothers. Thank you.
Man, I appreciate you having me, dude. You're awesome.
I mean, the word perspective, can you imagine being 23 years old and literally told that you're only going to have a decade or less to live? I just trying to put myself in his shoes. That is hard to do, because I just can't imagine. And went through the paralysis just before that. I just love his attitude on things, because nothing's that big a deal. He's definitely faced adversity, and I think it's just something that he has decided, no matter what, it's just not that big a deal. Yes, if I only had a decade to live, are you going to live each and every day with that much more zeal and zest, and just think of any other Z word you can, but you're going to give it your absolute all. And that's how I think Nate approaches life. And I hope you guys felt the same way, because I loved his energy, his enthusiasm, and his wisdom. It's just so wise beyond his years. And he's clearly done incredible things. Selling a company, being an entrepreneur, now helping people is really what fulfills him. So do me a favor, you guys, make sure to share this with people you know, love, and care about. He makes you feel good. And I thought he gave so many good nuggets in there that we can apply to every single day. And he literally lifted me up, which is why I love doing this show. So until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all. We'll talk soon.